Hello and welcome to CX Confessions, SurveyMonkey's new live stream series with a chance for us to have authentic, real conversations about customer experience, to connect and knowledge share. Today's episode, we're going to take a slightly different format. We have historically done one-on-one interviews, and this is a chance for us to share results from our just hot off the press CX peer survey. So you can think of it more or less as an interview with almost 200 CX professionals. To help me go through the results, I have invited my dear friend and colleague, Rhonda Hughes, who leads social at SurveyMonkey, that really took charge at leading this idea of a CX peer survey. Welcome, Rhonda, and I'd love to hear why you were so passionate about the benefits of a CX peer survey.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Like Christine said, last year I co-led a social media peer survey with Melissa Francois, who's my friend and colleague, doing all the behind-the-scenes work of today's live stream, because I wanted to understand more about social teams, right? So what is their role? What's the scope of their role? How big are their teams? Where do they report into? And I wanted to understand this because it varies company to company. And so for me, I was looking for those insights. But what I was really surprised by was that the response from my peer group was really incredible in terms of they wanted to take the survey, they wanted to give feedback, they wanted to share the survey. And so for me, the insights were super valuable, but they were also really valuable to the community as well. And so that's kind of how I became this little fangirl for CX, for peer surveys. If you listen to our first episode of CX Confessions back in February, which at this point feels like a lifetime ago, I talked a little bit about peer surveys and how we were going to launch one specifically for the CX audience. So as I've worked more with Christine, who leads CX at SurveyMonkey, and other CX leaders, I saw a lot of similarities between social and CX in that the rules vary considerably company to company. And so I saw an opportunity for us to provide some value to the CX community, and that was really the reason behind this.
Absolutely.
As Christine said, we published the report this morning, and so you should have a link within the description there that you can download the full report, get all the data. But we're going to talk about some of the key themes that we saw. First, let me frame up the conversation by just talking about a little bit, like, who did we hear from? So as Christine said, we gathered responses from a couple hundred CX professionals, 223 in total, then filtered that down to complete responses, so around 180 of those. 43% of those reported that they lead the team responsible for the holistic customer experience. A couple of the other kind of surprises of who participated in the survey, about a third of those also said that they focus on the customer support experience, and a third also said that they focus on the customer success. I wonder, Christine, how does that line up with kind of your experience with folks in this space?
Yeah, no, so first and foremost, thank you, Rhonda. She really was the one, and I was so admired what she did in 2019 on social and continues to do and play a leadership role in the social world. And the results that we got back were so insightful and really, really reinforce a lot of what I hear when I'm talking to CX leaders. SurveyMonkey's been helping individuals and businesses gather customer feedback for years and turn that feedback into action. So it's really the foundation of customer experience, and SurveyMonkey's been helping organizations for years. What I saw in these results, so a couple things struck me that you just hit on. One is I was really glad to see the 43% running a holistic CX program. Often, there's certainly those who are responsible for a portion. So they might sit in a support organization and drive what is the customer experience we provide through our support experience. And there's those that sit in success. But when you play the role of thinking holistically across your organization, you're really connecting the dots between success, support, product, and marketing. So I was really glad to hear the results. We had such a high percentage of folks looking holistically. And then you hit on the B2B or B2C.
Yeah, that was one of the other, I think, really interesting data points. 51% of our respondents identified their business as both B2B and B2C. So having both sides of that business.
That one really, that one struck me because I think so often if you are running a customer experience program and your business is only B2B, you can have a particular approach. It's often more one-on-one. You're thinking about a success organization engaged with your customers, and you have that. If you're B2C and you have a much broader audience, it's a different engagement. If you're responsible, as I am at SurveyMonkey, because we have a B2C side, a self-service side of the business, and we have a B2B side of the business where we have, sales, account executives, and customer success, you need to really think about connecting the dots of your program across the entire model. And the fact that I am not a minority, I am among 51%, have to think both sides of the coin was really encouraging, because it made me think, okay, there are others in the boat with me. So I was really glad to hear that. That one was actually a bit surprising.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Let's dive in a little bit more to some of the other data. I think the first theme that came about for me was that CX professionals don't fit in this kind of one-size-fits-all mold. And that was something that we kind of came into this thinking, and this data helped to validate that. So there is no standard what a CX leader looks like. They're unified in the goal of providing these really great customer experiences, but they sit in all different kinds of departments. So we've got a graph that I'll show here. If you look at the breakdown, I was actually pretty surprised at these results, and I can't wait to hear your kind of perspective on it, Christine. But 24% said that they sit within the C-suite. So the kind of CCO role. 21% said they sit within marketing. 16% said other. So this was kind of interesting as well. Just like to show how varied the response is here on where you sit. Customer support was 9%, strategy and business ops 9%, customer success 7%, product 7%, sales 4%, and IT 2%.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yes. Again, really reinforcing, but we haven't had the data. I haven't seen the data, but really reinforcing of what we're hearing in the market and what I am hearing from other CX leaders. So first, when it comes to nearly a quarter reporting at the C-level, Forrester actually, and I'll see if I can make sure I can add it to the comments. Forrester recently did a study where in 2019, they saw a fundamental shift. It's one of the trends that they saw of the rise of a customer experience being at either a C-suite position or reporting into the C-suite. We know customer experience is a cross-functional sport. There is no such thing as supporting customers and improving their experience. There's pieces you can do by function, but it is inherently cross-function. So increasingly, we're seeing it be represented in the C-suite. And we'll hit on this in a bit. It also reinforces the importance of it being a competitive advantage. Customer experience is now overcoming brand as a key differentiator of why people choose to do business with you. So that was really insightful and follows the trends that we're seeing analysts predict. The second thing that's interesting, and it's also you'll hear in market. So the 21% in marketing, it's an interesting one. We are seeing a rise of CX leaders report into marketing. One of the hypotheses there is, once upon a time, marketers were responsible for raising awareness and helping pull customers sort of into their experience, to walk into their store, to pick up the phone and call their organizations. But increasingly, that is not where marketing stops. They really need to both invite people into their organizations, engage them, help them create customers that are delighted, that are loyal, and become their advocates. So my hypothesis and what I hear other CX leaders who are reporting into marketing, it is following that customer journey and making sure you're listening to your customers across that journey and taking action to improve that experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another interesting insight was looking at team responsibilities. And so I've got a graph here because we looked at, this was a check all that apply question. So the goal of this was to kind of get a sense of what that scope is across the role. And so the way that I looked at this, I kind of followed a very similar format to what we did with the social media peer survey. The way we looked at this was more of like, most companies do this, or most CX professionals are doing this. Some of them are doing this, and then like a few of them are doing this, to kind of get a sense for like how broad is that scope.
Yeah.
If you look at the results, I'll call out just the top three. Of which of the following areas is your team responsible for? Driving a culture of customer centricity was first and foremost, with 70% of the people who took this survey saying that that was a part of their role. The second highest was establishing or expanding their customer feedback program, so CSAT, NPS, et cetera, which was 65%. And then the two that came in tied for third, however you say that, action program to improve product or processes, and measuring the impact of customer experience, retention, and growth, which are both at 63%. Christine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have shared in the past, I recently wrote an article on insights from a wonderful group of CX leaders that I have a chance to meet with regularly. And we had dinner in February, and the number one theme was around culture, that you are not in a position to I shouldn't say you're not in a position. You have a very, very hard time taking action and fundamentally improving the customer experience if you don't have a company culture that is customer centric, that puts the customer in the center of your decision making. If you don't have the cultural foundation, you're coming in with ideas and insights, but you can't get traction on action. And so I wasn't surprised to see culture head, because it's just the foundation. And so that what didn't surprise me. I think the other ones, they make a lot of sense. So, so many organizations might have a customer feedback, maybe in case closed, right? Once they have a support engagement, they might ask, did we resolve your issue? Was it easy to resolve? Were you satisfied? So they might have a piece, and that's where they might be looking to expand and think more holistically. And then certainly taking action and measuring. Very few CX leaders, I don't know anyone, in fact, who get into customer experience as a profession because they want to ask a lot of questions and write reports and share insights. They do it because they want to improve the experience. They want to serve their customers. And then in order to keep that flywheel going, to demonstrate to a business how important customer experience is to drive growth, to drive innovation, you need to be measuring the impact. So it was really nice to hear, again, things that we talk about that we didn't have the data to support. I want to keep walking through, because this is such a rich report, but I also want to remind folks who are watching this that to comment, to ask questions, we would love to hear from you. We'll leave a few minutes at the end of this live stream, but also as we replay this on demand, we would love to hear your thoughts, your reactions, what surprises you. So want to invite that conversation.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that was really interesting to me about the data is when you start filtering by things like where you report into. And so that was one of the kind of things that the data revealed, that where you sit in the organization has an impact on your responsibilities, which makes a lot of sense, right? I found it super insightful. I think there's a few findings specifically by department, for those that report into C-suite, how their responsibility changed. Do you want to talk through that, Christine, or do you?
Yeah. That one I found really interesting. So I'm looking at that stat. 70% of CX leaders say one of their primary responsibilities is to drive a culture of customer centricity. Yet if you report to the C-suite, that number spikes to 84%. So really, as you think about, for those CX leaders, if you think about the seat that your CEO or your chief customer officer, the responsibility they have, it is around culture. It's around their employee culture. It's around their customer-centric culture. And so that I found really insightful, and a reminder, regardless of sort of your level as a CX leader, just keep in mind at the top of your organization, in order to democratize and drive meaningful changes and empower folks, you need to be thinking about culture. So really, really important. I found it interesting that for marketing, so I think we said establishing or expanding a customer feedback program was 65% in general. Again, when it sits in marketing, it's 79%. And my hypothesis there goes back to what I mentioned. as marketers are increasingly thinking and often leading the journey, they're also marketers over the last 10 years have become system experts, connecting operational data, being a data-driven marketing organization. More and more marketing is thinking about how to set up those listening posts, how to connect the data, and how to drive action. So establishing or expanding that program. And then product. So driving an action program to improve product. In general, it was 63%. However, if a CX leader reports into a chief product officer or the product organization, it rises to 85%. What's interesting here, I met a CX leader recently at a professional association event who said he had to move himself from into the product organization to have the CX function report into the product organization. And the reason was to be able to increase the chance of driving action. So yeah, that one was really interesting and something to consider as a CX leader of maybe where your biggest organizational challenges are, of if there's a chance to influence where you're reporting, or to think through where a CX leader fits in their organization is going to influence their goals, which makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. We see that with social as well. I think it's intuitive, but it's interesting to see the data that then verifies that, right? Or validates that, whichever way. I think one of the other areas, and I would definitely, again, recommend that you download the report, because we do go into more detail in some of these by breaking it down by things like role or your company size, which gives you just a little bit more wealth in kind of the insights. One of the other interesting, kind of moving to theme 2, we asked about the top challenges facing the success of your CX initiatives. Number one, CX professionals generally said that metrics are the top challenge. And so up on the screen here, you'll see the top 3. Number one was no clear metrics defined or measured. That's the top challenge with 32%. Connecting CX data with operational data, so like connecting the systems, 29%. And continuously proving value is 24%. Now, this isn't unique to CX. Having defined metrics is in place is really essential to measuring and communicating the impact of any program. But Christine, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's, I have a chance because we have CX leaders globally, turning to SurveyMonkey, asking for advice, leveraging our products and tools and solutions to run their customer experience programs. And one of the things we'll talk about is the skills to be successful. And here's a hypothesis, and I hope to get my act together. And the fact that I'm saying this out loud, I'm going to hold myself accountable to publish an article on LinkedIn, hopefully this week, on some of those top skills. And here's one of my observations, is there are 3 skills required that fit squarely in the challenges, align so perfectly to the challenges that highlight. A CX leader needs to be an influencer, an analyst, and a business systems expert. Okay, so you need to be an influencer, a marketer, a salesperson. You hear over and over, continuously proving the value. You need to be a storyteller. You need to be a connector. You are taking action through functional partnerships, and you don't get there without having influence and being able to connect the dots and be a cross-functional leader. So the fact that that rose as a key challenge really plays into, for some, that's a real struggle. Actually, for most, it's a perpetual challenge. I mentioned being an analyst. So you can't be a CX leader unless you know how to take insights and understand the so what. Sometimes the insights are obvious, but more often or not, you have to be able to map them and connect them to other insights. What's your business strategy? Where are the priorities? So you need to be an analyst who knows how to think critically, leverage data to drive action. And then the third, which plays into, in order to influence, in order to connect the dots, you've got to be a business system expert, because you have this opinion data, you have this sentiment data, but it has to be connected to Well, they're really delighted with your product. Which product in the portfolio are they using? How long have they been a customer? What's their experience been? How engaged are they? So you really need to be able to connect the dots. So what I loved about this is, and we're going to hit on in a minute, the size of team. When I hear so many CX leaders say, I'm overwhelmed, I feel alone, as so many folks have small teams, and to be successful, you need to be an influencer, you need to be an analyst, and you need to be a business system expert. And that's a tall order.
That's a very good segue over to the next kind of theme that we saw, which is CX teams are extremely lean. Small and scrappy is the name of the game. 1 in 3 say they run a one-person operation. If you filter this to look at small business specifically, so 1 to 49 employees, that goes up to 50%. So 50% of CX professionals that are in small organizations are solo. And then even for large companies, 5,000 people above, 1 in 4 have only 1 to 2 people. So just the data that backs up what you just said, Christine.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a perfect time for a plug for next week's episode. We have a rock star. I'm so excited. Tony Rodoni leads CX at Salesforce. So he is one of the eminent experts in customer experience. And one of the things I'll just preview to you, Salesforce is no small organization, and he has a team of 4 people to lead customer experience. So how the heck do you do that? Certainly, and so let me just hit on both sides of the coin. So there are, I don't think there are many CX leaders that would advocate you want to be building a big team. Why? Because customer experience needs to be embedded in the functions. It needs to be about the culture, the mindset that support is thinking about how to deliver a great experience. So is success. Product is thinking, what is the job we're trying to solve? And what is that experience? Is it effortless? Are we anticipating? And marketing is showing up and engaging in conversations in a respectful way and delivering a great customer experience. So, years ago, it used to be build these voice of customer teams or sort of mini kingdoms and sit on the side. The problem is that puts this responsibility with this, I don't know why I keep telling you, like, this team sitting over here rather than embedded in. So you need to have the action and the responsibility embedded in. However, when you're talking about teams of 1 and 2, you're influencing, you're analyzing, you're connecting the systems, and then, oh, by the way, trying to get action through that influence and sometimes even sponsoring key initiatives. It's a real challenge. And again, we hear CX leaders all the time say how overwhelmed they are, which makes a lot of sense. So it's not that we want to advocate for really big teams. At the same time, being thoughtful about how we can drive meaningful results when you're split between these responsibilities, and how do you make sure you have those skills represented to put your organization and set it up for success.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And similar to social, if I remember from your results, which is
true. It's like, in some ways, this data, and part of the reason I like peer surveys is that it is comforting, right? Even if it's like, oh, it validates, like, you're in the same boat as me. Like, hearing something I can imagine for someone else that's in a small team, hearing that Salesforce has a team of 4 is like, oh, okay. So we're all in the same boat trying to, put this together, and there's all these challenges. And so hopefully you find this data really valuable. To talk about the 4th theme that we saw come out, CX professionals have to prove their value again and again. So we asked CX leaders to agree or disagree with the following statement. My company understands the role of CX and the value that I bring. 63% agreed and strongly agreed. So that's a good thing, but that leaves a surprising 37% of people who did not agree with the statement. Christine, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this came up at again in the CX Leader Forum that I had a chance to talk with. In addition to culture, you can have a customer-centric culture. So it's not a criticism of your organization that they're customer-centric, that you keep having to sell the value. Why? Because improving the customer experience, those initiatives come down the pipe, and they are competing against things like maybe you have some tech debt, or you're working on some platform initiatives. Maybe there are some new sales that are influencing sort of the roadmap, and you have key commitments. Maybe there's some growth initiatives that are happening. So your customer experience initiatives, while everyone knows the value of them, are still competing with always a limited capacity to execute, always a limited number of people, and you have to prioritize. So there's no such thing as, going into your leadership or your board meeting and pitching your ideas and having them clap and say, you're done forever on selling the value of customer experience. It would be lovely. It's just not realistic. You have to repeatedly be reinforcing, telling the story, measuring those results, and demonstrating action. And then that's where the virtuous cycle, but it never ends.
I think this brings back up what you've talked about a few times during this live stream. Really key to have the right skills and the right partnerships across the org. You shared with me this image, which we're going to bring up right now, that I really like. I mean, first of all, I love visuals, but I think this really helps to drive home what you're talking about these partnerships.
Yeah, we, when was this? Back in maybe February, again, a bit of a lifetime ago, I had a chance to meet with our CX, our customer ops, our customer support leader, Dan Hennig, an amazing leader at SurveyMonkey, Danielle on our customer success team, Brooke on our customer success team, and we had a conversation customer centricity, how to think about customer experience. And this is really, and so that's the artist captured our conversation, which was so fun. But it does, again, I would love to hear from you. So please add comments. When I think about what a customer experience leader needs to do to be successful, and by successful, it means your work and the work that you're doing is improving the customer experience. You need to be someone who is influencing, connecting functions, leading those cross-functional teams. You need to be an analyst. You have to be thinking about what the data says and put it in context of your business strategy. And you have to be connecting your data to other data sets. The sentiment analysis is so critical to having a 360 view of your customers, but you also need to be looking at that operational data, that financial data, to have that holistic view, and that's, and say, connecting which is the value of get feedback, really connecting that to, say, the customer data in Salesforce. So you need to be thinking about business systems, and you need to be working with solutions that make that easy. So yes, this is what I'll probably hit on in the article. But again, Rhonda, to your point, there's so much rich data in the full report. So I encourage folks to dive in. I'm watching comments and questions come in, and thank you to the marketing ops leader at Gilead Science, who can't wait for my article. Oh, so it's out there. So I'll get to that.
Now you're committed. It's happening.
But please do download the full report, and we would love to hear from you. Rhonda, what are your, I would love to know kind of any sort of closing thoughts as really the instigator who inspired this.
I was going to ask you about your closing thoughts. I mean, I think for me, I am just excited to see what, those of you watching and the other people who download this report, what do you think about the results? Was it helpful? Were there questions that you wish that you asked? I mean, I know every time that I do a survey, I'm always like, I wish I would have asked it this way, or I wish I would have delved into this more. But I hope that the results are valuable to you. And yeah, I mean, I would love to hear your comments about what you found most surprising in the data, and what kind of ideas that it sparks for you.
I love it. It sounds like you're already setting ourselves up for the next one.
You're trying to commit me to things.
Absolutely. Oh, I wish I knew more on this. Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, first of all, thank you to the, nearly 200 CX leaders globally across all industries who took the time to fill this report out. The goal is real insights for CX leaders so they can run agile CX programs. Gone are the days of the monolithic, waterfall CX programs are just, you can't afford those anymore. You need to be agile. And this really helps CX leaders. So thank you for taking the time. Definitely download the full report and let us know what you think. And then please tune in next week, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. It is a Tuesday from 9 to 9:30 Pacific time, same time as this one. I will sit down with Salesforce's customer experience leader, Tony Rodoni, one of my favorite folks of all time. So I am really looking forward to learning from him, having a very real conversation of what works, what doesn't work, what has he struggled with, where has he had the wins. So join us and tune in. Rhonda, what do you think? Is that a wrap?
Yeah, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really amazing to partner with you on this series and then also on the CX Peer Survey. And to all of you who tuned in, I really hope that you get value out of both this CX Confession series and that data. And let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help you, because that's what we want to do.
Awesome. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you for joining. Have a great day.